morning. As we are about to begin, I introduce myself first. My name is Nurul Nadia and it is my pleasure to be your MC this morning. Assalamualaikum and good morning everyone. Welcome to the Agro-Food Productive webinar on enhancing productivity and yield in poultry production. We have here Mr. Seng Kit as our moderator. Brief information on Mr. Kit. He has 30 years of full-time commercial experience in developing and managing sustainable tropical food production for export markets. He has written the APO Good Agriculture Practice Manual and has developed the trainer's material on GAP training courses for the ASEAN Productivity Organization. Since 2003, Mr. Kit Chan has continuously conducted training courses in training of trainers as resource person in development programs on horticulture chain management for International Agency, FAO, APO, APAC, and Malaysian Agriculture Agency and Industries and University. Now, without further ado, I will now pass the session to Mr. Seng Kit.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another series of the webinar organized by the Agro-Food Productivity of the AFPN MPC. Today we are going to talk about the enhancing of productivity and yield in the poultry production. This is a continuation of some of the work that we have done in the previous weeks. Today I'm very happy to have the company of four experts. We've got Dr. Razli, we've got Dr. Raymond, Dr. Nafisah, and Dr. Lee in our company. And they will share with us some of their thoughts about their views on what productivity would be like and how it could be enhanced in the poultry industry. I'd like to say a few words prior to we start. Because there are some people who think that the improvement in productivity of the industry could be through the organizational management and control. And this is where production systems and procedures will come into play. So if you can control the producers, you will get them better organized. That would be a way of getting their productivity forging up. However, we must not forget that the poultry production process is not just a process, but it is all about science, animal science to be precise, because the science will dictate what the birds, the poultry, what the birds will eat, how it will live, how well it will grow, and how fast it will grow, and how tasty it will be. So when we consider all of this, let us not forget that at the end of the day, it is the consumer who will have the last word on what is quality and what the consumer is willing to pay. And this shall be the final definitive of how the productivity in the industry will be. These words are mentioned to set the tone for today's discussions. And I would like to begin the webinar by introducing our first speaker. He is Dr. Mohammad Razli. And Mohammad Razli is the head of Inspection and Veterinary Certification from the Department of Veterinary Services, the DVS. Dr. Razli graduates with the master's degree in animal studies, majoring in animal product food safety from Queensland, Australia. He holds a degree in veterinary medicine from UPM. He has certificates from HACCP and Advanced Product Protection Techniques, and a string of other certifications. Without any further ado, I'd like to invite Dr. Razli to share his thoughts on his ideas of MYGAP and how it will be a tool that can be implemented for the improvement of productivity in the poultry industry. I would like to hand this over now to Dr. Razli.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So first of all, thank you for inviting me for this seminar. So for this morning, I will focus on the overall of MYGAP, or Malaysia Good Agriculture Practice Certification, and the effort undertaken to ensure that livestock and livestock-based product can export and produce their products and export to other countries. Sorry. Can I start with, actually, veterinary certification is conducted by Department of Veterinary Services. So far we have 4 certificates that under our scheme, under our program. The first certificate is MYGAP. It is a good agriculture practice. We also have our MyOrganic certification for organic products. We also have our veterinary health mark, or veterinary inspection for animal-based product, as well as we have our good veterinary hygiene practice for small entrepreneurs. So what is our objective on this producing all these certification? Our objective is that we want to increase competitiveness through health and disease-free production and quality, as well as safe products. So this program actually a supporting program for disease control program and quality assurance program in farm level, slaughterhouse, and animal-based processing plants. So veterinary certificate activities actually focus on farm level, as I mentioned. For MYGAP, on farm level, consists of MyOrganic and GMP feed, slaughterhouse and animal-based processing plants. Focus, we will issue the GVHP, Good Veterinary Hygiene Practice, and Veterinary Health Mark. We also approve a few private labs that can do all this testing for the products and for these animal disease. So for your information, our services is free. We don't have any charge on it, so it is totally free for producer and for all the farm owner. So it is it can be considered voluntary and mandatory. Okay, sorry. So what is in terms to get this veterinary certification for MyOrganic and MYGAP, so they need a prerequisite to be able to get this veterinary certification. For MYGAP and MyOrganic, we need the livestock license for the farm. So they must be a private vet in the farm. So farm actually been operated in one cycle, for example, and then it has been endorsed by Department Veterinary Services, State Department Veterinary Services. And we also have our MYGAP for the Swiftlet premise. So Swiftlet premise, it has to be, he got the ID premise and has been operated for 6 months and have the production as well as endorsed by veterinary services, state veterinary services. For the good veterinary hygiene practice as well, we need a license from local authorities, yeah, and it has to be 3 months operated, and it has been recorded. All the good manufacturing practice has been recorded for 3 months. And for the veterinary health mark, as I mentioned, that veterinary health mark is actually for this processing plant that produce food of animal origin. So as well, it is need prerequisite, consists of license from the local authority, and it has to be operated at least 3 months. Yeah. So why we need a MYGAP? So it is universal, and everywhere in the world they are talking about good agriculture practice. It is for sure to ensure that quality assurance for these animals and animal base in terms of to produce food safety. And if you have this certification on MYGAP, consumer will be more confident, and it is will fulfill the local and international market requirement, as well as the veterinary verification service will be done and will be regulated, monitor, and it will reduce period to get veterinary health certificate. Yeah. So for this application, it is by online certificate application, but we in the headquarters we also need the hard copy for us to do the evaluation. The hard copy that we need is company or farm profile, supporting document, as I mentioned, and we need this manual. Farm manual consists of 16 elements. For example, farm infrastructure facilities, farm resources management, livestock management, farmhouse management, identification and traceability of livestock, herd health management, farm sanitation, farm waste management, pest control management, environment management, storage management, transportation, animal welfare, internal audit, personnel and visitor management, as well as a document and record. So there's a lot of requirement or documentation that need to be submitted to us in order for us to do the evaluation. Yeah. So why we have to do this? This is what we call quality. Yeah. If you want to be able to get this quality and to be recognized as a quality and good agriculture practice, so we need to have the certification, and we need all these quality requirement to be implemented and to be practiced. So the implementation of good agriculture husbandry practice is very, very important. So the criteria from MYGAP, as I mentioned, is that we are look for the herd health program, biosecurity program, as well as premise and infrastructure. As shows in this slide, so everything should be in order. So for example, the livestock should be healthy and goes through the regulated system. Farmers should ensure that suspected disease, if it occurs, need to be notified, yeah, to the Department of Veterinary Services as soon as possible. So the herd health program need to be in the proper, for example, vaccination program, deworming program, and disease screening program. So the biosecurity as well meant a very is a main factor to be successful in this certification scheme. So biosecurity, the farm the operator should establish a biosecurity program to prevent the introduction of vectors in the farm. Yeah, so it is very, very important, as well as the premise and infrastructure has to be comply with the requirement, include the biosecurity infrastructure. Premise shouldn't be in a flood-prone area, suitable building and facilities, and suitable equipment has been implemented. So other aspect that we need to consider in terms of good animal husbandry practice is prudent use of drug. This is very important, and it can be a very long topic to discuss regarding this. So as a veterinarian, as a producer, as a farmer, we need to focus now to this use of the drugs, especially use of medication. So it must be controlled, it must be prescribed by veterinary doctor. That's why it is very subject that we need to discuss, and we need to have to control on it before it's too late for because people now they are more focused on the drugs and the drug use, especially medicine, and veterinary has to play a role to overcome all the problem regarding the drugs and medicine, veterinary medicine. So waste management as well, and the pollution control as well now is a very hot topic. And as a veterinarian, as a farm manager, we need to settle and to ensure that we are managed, waste can be managed, and the pollution shouldn't be occurs in our country. Animal welfare as well, animal welfare as well, we have to take consideration how to deal with the animal welfare, because we also have now we have our Animal Welfare Act 2015 that it is now available, and it's been gazetted, and we have to ensure that this animal welfare, it's we are work with it, and we are part of to implement the act on animal welfare, as well as pest control program and sanitation control. So, ladies and gentlemen, we already have a lot of guideline and the protocol to be comply with all these requirements. So in our department, we have all the document and the guidelines. So it is for this farm manager and for these authorities to have it and to practice on it. Yeah. Other criteria, MyOrganic as well is now people focus on MyOrganic. So we have our MyOrganic criteria to certified as a MyOrganic farm and certified by Department of Veterinary Services. So we also have our guideline, including farm infrastructure, farm biosecurity management program, as same as our MYGAP certification. We also need to do the evaluation on farm resources, source of livestock, feed and drinks, herd health program, and we also focus for the MyOrganic certification more to the medication and chemical use program. So in Malaysia, we are focused on it, and we are control on the usage of antibiotic, chemical, veterinary drugs. So medication should be organic, based on organic base, and we are allowed vaccination can be used if needed in terms of medical and chemical use program in our MyOrganic criteria. So as well, the same as MYGAP, we also focus on sanitation program, waste management, pollution program, and the pest control program. So any usage of poison and chemical must be avoided in terms of MyOrganic certification. So what is the benefit of all this certification? Of course, the benefit is for animals, for animals, for environment, for environment, consumer, and for the country. So this is the benefit of the certification. Safe to consume, environment friendly, increase of productivity, and we produce high quality products. So other benefits that as I mentioned, is ongoing supervision of the authority. So in Malaysia, we are thankful because the there is no charge for this authority to do the supervision. So the Department of Veterinary Services will be do the supervision, and we will look on the misuse logo and so on, and we will keep work together with the industry to ensure that we have a higher confidence in hygiene and safety management practice, good manufacturing practice. It will increase consumer confidence, easy acceptance into foreign market, and it will be facilitated for the document in services because Department of Veterinary Services has to issue the veterinary health certificate, and it is need to have this document for the product to be able to export to other country. Yeah, so this is the benefit of our certification. So against this certification process flow, I just share with you how to get this MYGAP certification. First, we need to apply. Apply can be with our online application. We have our system for online application, and we will do the adequacy audit. If it is complete, we will go to the next step, and if it is not, we will conduct another session to these applicants so that they can apply back they can apply the certification and complete the uncompleted request or whatever it is incomplete, they need to complete it, and then after everything is complete, there will be compliance audit, and it is same whether it is complete or incomplete. And if it is complete, we will do the approval and the certificate will be awarded. Yeah, and after they got the certification, there will be surveillance audit, yeah, by department, and there will be review audit. So this is the normal procedure of certification. Yeah, so there will be surveillance audit and review audit. So in term, as I mentioned, we need a few things that is very important in terms of this certification. It's a copy before it is been awarded by the certification, a copy of Farm Veterinary Officer and Officer Annual Practice. This is very important, but because we want to ensure that the farm is supervised by their own veterinary officer, so they need as well this if related livestock license if it is issued by any state, and MYGAP application should be supported by state letter from state veterinary office in terms of free from other diseases. This is very important. And then this is what the challenge to go through. So I know it's quite a tedious process, but it is very, very important, and it's very it's need to be fulfill the requirement. The MYGAP can be applied by online, and all the document has to be submitted to us, and we will do the application evaluation. We will do the farm inspection, and then there will be evaluated by the technical committee, and then after the evaluate by technical committee, and there will be accreditation, and then the certificate will be awarded. So for the farm owner or for this applicant, they need to have the checklist for implementation. This is again the criteria that need to be fulfilled and need to be maintained, including the infrastructure and biosecurity. Yeah, farm management. Yeah, they need to have checklists, and they need to check from time to time. Yeah, it's not just a wait for the surveillance audit. The farm veterinarian need to do their check, their internal audit as well, to ensure that everything is comply with the requirement of the certification. The health management record. So far, until October 2020, we have almost 2,595 farms that already certified by our department. So only 9 farm already got this My Organic certification, and MYGAP wallet is Swiftlet certification. We have around 2,100 MYGAP for Swiftlet. So this is based on the species. We have our species, for example, ruminants, broiler layers, yeah, and all these hatcheries as well are under our certification. Yeah. So total we have 2,595 total, including these hatcheries for MYGAP. So, ladies and gentlemen, beside the MYGAP certification, our department as well, our section as well, closely assist the exportation of products from Malaysia. So we also issuing the veterinary health certificate for export products. So far, from January to October 2020, we do this for a lot of inspection to ensure that products fulfill the requirement by other countries. For example, a lot of product export to the United States, Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Vietnam, and other countries, a lot of countries, and they need this veterinary health certificate. So we do this inspection, yeah, because a few processing plant, for example, they don't have any certification, but we still encourage them to, they need to export their product. We still have our program so that we will do the inspection on site and we will issuing the veterinary health certificate. But we also encourage them to apply for the veterinary health mark, for example, so that if they have the veterinary health mark certification, we don't need to do this regular inspection, and they can export and can have our veterinary health certificate according to our program. Yeah. So from January to October, we do a lot of inspection. We also do the inspection for these meat and meat product to Singapore, for example. Even though the processing plant or the establishment already got our veterinary health certificate, but from the Singapore requirement, they need to do their inspection as well, and we also do the inspection to ensure that our product is fulfilled the requirement by importing countries. So from January to October, we have 71 inspection has been done to ensure that it's fulfilled the requirement by other countries. So, for example, countries like Indonesia and China as well, we have a lot of inspection being carried out to ensure that we fulfill the requirement by China. Yeah. So all of these activities or program is conducted by my section. Yeah. So for countries like Japan as well, we conduct this veterinary inspection for this product that need to export to Japan. Yeah, as well as any verification, any non-compliance has been detected by Singapore. We also have our team to do this verification inspection. Yeah. To help this processing plant to overcome or to do the corrective action. So our officer will do and help this industry to ensure that they fulfill they do the corrective action and the non-compliance has been resolved. Yeah, and then after that we will do this documentation procedure, and we will send it to Singapore to ensure that we do the rectification as a competent authority, and the result of this investigation will be forward to Singapore authority. Yeah. Yeah.
Dr. Razli, I need you to wrap up quickly.
Okay. So this is what we call, so far for this MYGAP, we already cover a lot of things to ensure that MYGAP is fulfilled with our industry. So far, we do a lot of application has been rectified, and we already have for this year we already have we approved 9 And for this Swiftlet premise, already 36. And for status on application of Singapore as well, we do a lot of things to ensure that we comply with this requirement by Singapore, in terms of broiler and layers, as well as eggs and poultry products. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Razli. That is an important presentation there, because while MYGAP has been promoted to many of the industry people, there are still many who are still very confused. And I'm glad you have made this presentation and made clear. I'm already receiving questions on your topic here, but I shall relay those questions later when we finish with the presentation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Razli.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to move on to listen to Dr. David Choe. David is the veterinary service manager with Rhône, Malaysia. And he is providing technical support and relative services on livestock production. He's a veterinarian himself from UPM since 2007, so lots of years of experience there. His research focused a lot on probiotics and metabolites on layer productions. So I'd like to bring the next course to David, who will talk about poultry performance in closed house as opposed to open house farming systems, and how the thermal stress and ventilation will affect the productivity on this. So David, I'd like you to take the floor for the next 20 minutes. Please.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sure. So basically a very pleasant morning to all the participants today. For my part, right, I'll be talking a bit about, it's actually, not to say a very important part, but then it is actually very essential for poultry production, especially for broilers and layers. So today I'll be touching on heat stress and the effects of enclosed and open-sided broiler house. Okay, so basically just to make an introduction, to enhance productivity and yield in poultry production, a lot of us has been focusing on a lot of aspects. This could include the DOC quality, the feed quality, the water, the drug or vaccination program, the management, or even disease. So whenever there is actually some issues happening, for example, when there is actually disease happening, or maybe perhaps like the bird is healthy, but then it is not growing as per standard. So we tend to pinpoint a lot on these few factors. But anyhow, a lot of us have forgotten that actually stress is a very important factor in broiler production as well. Because actually, especially for heat stress, because this heat stress, it could actually affect poultry productivity, health, and even the welfare of animal. Okay, so these are the contents of my discussion. A bit, it's actually quite straightforward, but then I'll be explaining more in detail later. Okay, so just an introduction, basically, when we talk about heat stress, we have to know about the production of the heat energy and even the removal or the dissipation of the heat, where we call it the sensible heat loss. So basically for poultry, for birds, for chicken, or even breeders or layers, or even broilers, normally they are actually, at normal time, if it's normal, they are actually using this, we call it sensible heat loss. It's actually kind of like a terminology for 3 methods of heat loss. So basically chickens are warm-blooded and then they are homoatomic, which means if let's say the range is not that extreme, they can actually still able to maintain the temperature within the acceptable range. And their normal core body temperature is around 39 to 42.2 degrees Celsius. And some literature quote it is not 39, it is 40. So I think maybe the ranges actually, it range from there. So, okay, in the case when the surrounding temperature rises, the bird maintains the core temperature by losing heat. So this is actually the method, this is actually the way that they are using sensible heat loss. And then sensible heat loss, there are actually 3 methods of losing heat. Firstly, they have the radiation. It is almost similar like for example, the heat from solar, from sun. When, because actually you're not touching the sun, but then anyhow, you're still feeling the heat. So this is actually emitted or transmitted through electromagnetic heat. And then we have conduction, which means it's actually a point-to-point contact. There's actually a contact to remove or dissipate the heat to a colder object. for example, like for poultry, they tend, their food pad, yeah, they tend to touch on the floor, which is, for example, much colder. So they tend to remove the heat from there. And then thirdly, it is actually through convection, which is moving air, which removes radiant heat, okay? And for this part, yeah, especially for convection is very important in broiler production or even for all the farming, because actually convection is actually a way for us to easily remove any kind of like air or air which is actually very hot. So the next best way to rely on ventilation or movement of air in the house is actually to get rid of excess heat and moisture. And with the very good ventilation in the farm, yeah, it is actually able to help convection process a lot. So this is actually a graph just to show you, okay, if it's a bird, normally for any animals, yeah, be it birds or any other animals or even human, there is actually a range of temperature which the body can actually accept, which means there is actually a lower critical temperature value, and then there is upper critical temperature value. So for birds, for chickens or for any birds, if let's say they are the surrounding temperature, okay, is actually within this thermoneutral zone, the chicken is still able to maintain the function, maintain the homeostasis, okay, and then without using any energy. So if let's say if the temperature goes below or goes above this thermoneutral zone, then perhaps the chicken has to spend a lot of energy or maybe extra activities, yeah, to maintain that. And even if it's actually go way beyond that to a very extreme value, it could actually even cause detrimental effect. Okay, so basically just now I mentioned about sensible heat loss. That is one of the common way that the chicken use, yeah, to remove heat. Whereas actually there's another way which is much more, much more dramatic, much more drastic, which we call latent heat loss, or another word, evaporative cooling. So this happens, yeah, when the temperature, surrounding temperature exceeds 25 degrees or exceeds the upper limit of the acceptable critical. So because actually at around 25 degrees and above, losing heat through the sensible heat loss, yeah, the method would be less effective. So now the bird relies on latent heat loss, which normally this is actually being conducted, yeah, through sweating and panting. But unfortunately, for chickens, because humans, we can sweat, we can pant, okay, to remove the heat. But then anyhow, chickens, because they have lack of sweat glands, that's why they couldn't sweat. The only thing that they can depend when it comes to latent heat loss is only panting. Okay, this is actually just a figure just to show you how the sensible heat loss and the latent heat loss it works. Okay, in the beginning, if let's say the temperature, the temperature means a surrounding temperature, yeah, it's not the temperature of the birds. So let's say in the beginning, if there's an increase of temperature, but it is not that extreme, normally it is actually the sensible heat loss processor that will work. The three ways which I mentioned, which is the radiation, the conduction, and convection. But once the surrounding temperature reaches a certain limit, which is certain literature did quote, it is around 77 Fahrenheit degree, which is around 25 degree. So on that point onwards, yeah, sensible heat loss process is not that effective anymore. From that onwards, we have to depend a lot on the evaporative heat loss. That is actually a much more effective way to remove the heat or dissipate the heat. Okay, so basically talking about, just like I mentioned about removing heat through sensible heat loss or latent heat loss in chicken. And right now we try to go much more deeper into heat stress. So heat stress basically is a definition, yeah, by definition, it is a condition in which the body is unable to maintain the balance between the heat production and body heat loss. So basically heat stress is a risk factor to all species. It is not only chicken, yeah. But then the thing is that in terms of the tolerance level or the susceptibility level between a species of animals or between human or even different species, it actually varies. Some people might be able to tolerate further, but some is actually much more sensitive. But hello, okay. But anyhow, the heat stress here is mainly primarily influenced by two important factors, which is actually the temperature and the relative humidity. Which for sure, as you know, the relative humidity, it means the amount of the water content in the air. And then anyhow, we have actually for heat stress, we have to have a kind of like indication or a number to to evaluate how severe the heat stress is. In this situation, we are using the heat stress index, which is HSI. This is actually an index here combining the temperature and relative, and then the calculation is a bit very straightforward. Okay, so HSI basically is a temperature in Fahrenheit plus humidity. And the one general thumb of rule that we are using for HSI when we're using this index is that whenever the HSI is actually exceeding 160, it is actually an indication that the bird is on the brim of actually having heat stress. So our rule is that for any production or for any birds, if you are doing this measurement, it is preferable if you are able to get it below that. Okay, not to say that if it's near 160, it is actually still there's a risk. But if you're getting it lower, then perhaps the risk of the heat stress is much more lower. And then this index, the HSI, is only applicable when the birds are post-brooding, which means, like, for example, when you're brooding, the temperature might be going very high, quite high. Okay, so because actually the tolerance level of chicks or even the younger birds is different from older birds. Okay, so we tend to use this HSI normally only for post-brooding. Okay, when you want to evaluate the extent of the heat stress in one particular farm. Okay, so basically, just like I mentioned about explanation, it is all in statements, all in words. But then this is a very clear table, yeah, showing how do we evaluate the HSI, the heat stress index. So basically, it comprises of the two main important factors which I mentioned: the temperature and the relative humidity. So as you can see, there are 4 levels of comfort. What we are aiming for, yeah, okay, we're aiming for actually this the upper zone, the comfort zone. But then, as you know, Malaysia, it is actually a bit difficult for poultry production because anyhow in Malaysia, it is hot and humid all the time. So which means if everything is extreme now, so we are anyhow actually at the lower bottom of the region. Okay, so talking about Malaysia, the poultry production in Malaysia, should we ask that is heat stress a really relevant issue in poultry production? For me or for us, we think it is actually. Okay, according to Gregory, Gregory is actually a researcher from overseas. He did a trial in 2010. Actually, he did compile a lot of results, okay, from all over the world. And then he did make one conclusion, is that for poultry production, the risk of HS is very high in subtropical climates and actually for tropical climates. And unfortunately, Malaysia is actually one of the tropical countries. On this kind of this heat stress effect is much more apparent in open-sided house, because the daily fluctuations of temperature and humidity and external climates are much more apparent, okay? While in closed house, as the birds are reared in closed environment, in terms of the fluctuation of this effect, okay, is much lesser. But in a way, because when it comes to closed house, you tend to dense the population, you tend to put more birds. So if it's not managed well, in a way, it is actually causing some issue on the heat stress as well, okay? And for closed house system, for you to have a very good control of the fluctuation of the environment or even the temperature and even the humidity, you need to equip the closed house system with a very good ventilation system. And even the whole thing must be functional and operable. Okay, this is very important for us to get rid of the heat and moisture of the house, because everything is enclosed and the birds tend to produce a lot of heat and even moisture constantly. Okay, how do we identify heat stress? Yeah, when birds are having heat stress, you can see the very common behavior. Very common clinical signs. Okay, firstly, there'll be excessive drinking because they are thirsty. So they are trying to reach out they're trying to compete or reach out for a water source. Okay, if it's really serious, in a very extreme way, if the heat stress is serious or extreme, the birds can be very inactive, because they are trying to minimize activity which can produce heat. And then they'll be panting like what I mentioned, because they cannot lose the heat through the sensible heat loss. So they are going towards the latent heat loss process, which is panting. By panting, they're actually trying to remove the heat from the body, okay? And then thirdly, you have wings are lifted away from the body just to open the surface and then actually to remove the heat. These are actually, it is similar like even for human, for other animals. And then there'll be flip over syndrome. There'll be diarrhea. Let's say if there's actually excessive drinking, okay, because of sudden excessive drinking, then post after that, the situation after that is that you'll be able to observe a slight diarrhea. We call it wet feces. In the much more serious manner, it might even cause seizure or heat stroke, because anyhow heat stress, it is actually affecting a very, specific function of the body. There'll be ascites, and then there'll be actually sudden death as well. Okay, I did some literature review. Did some scientific papers here, and then there's actually a lot of reports showing the effects of HS on the performance of birds. Actually, not only the performance, scientifically, how does it affect the birds in the way? So basically, in general, the heat stress is actually causing varying degree of physiological disturbances to the birds. And some of the studies have shown that HS could cause, okay, for example, okay, this is very apparent because the bird is feeling not healthy, feeling very hot, okay, so there will be decrease of feed intake, okay, because of the decrease of feed intake or even because of being inactive, okay, there will be, as it goes on, it will become actually, there will be decrease of body weight. And then because of decrease of body weight, the body tend to be less efficient in processing the feed, okay, so there will be, the FCR will be impacted. And then finally, if it's really serious, okay, in a way, because anyhow, the physiological disturbances has become to an extent, has become a very serious manner. So it can even cause mortality. And then if, let's say physiological, in what sense of physiological is heat stress actually affecting the birds? So these are actually some of the things that I've included inside, okay? And then these are all published, okay, and proven. So basically heat stress in a way, if it's too extreme, it will actually cause oxidative stress, which is actually one of the things that we do not want if it's prolonged or if it's actually very serious. And then there'll be electrolyte as acid, or we call it acid-base imbalance because of the loss of bicarbonate. And then there'll be panting, which finally leads to the respiratory alkalosis, which is actually, in a way, if it's really serious, it can cause even cause sudden death, okay? And then it'll affect the immune system, okay? Because in one of the reports, it did mention with a very serious heat stress kind of like stimulation, it will actually cause, the final findings that they have is that actually they tend to observe the spleen, the bursa, the liver, and the heart rates tend to be lower than the control. And then spleen and bursa is very, those are very important organs which are involved in the immune system, in antibody production. Apart from that, the HS could even cause abnormal hormone level productions, which could regulate metabolism, growth, on even reproductive function. So these are actually all the hormones that can indirectly impact the production performance. And then finally, there'll be changes of behavior, okay, as like the birds is actually feeling heaty, and then to avoid generating much any more heat, they're trying to become inactive, okay. And another paper that that I found recently is that even HS, there's actually a finding that it is mentioned that HS in a way can change, can change the gut microflora. And then it is actually kind of like a risk factors to make coccidiosis much more susceptible. Okay, so basically just now I mentioned about the impact, what is heat stress, and then the impact of heat stress. And because of this reason, we are, there's actually a joint research project between the association and even for between association and MPC. So the main objective of this project, okay, is actually includes a series of studies, not only on heat stress, but on other aspects as well. So there'll be a lot of analysis, a lot of studies. This is mainly to identify the status of broiler production in Malaysia. And hopefully with the results that they have, they can actually derive to certain kind of like findings and even recommendation to improve the production. So basically for my part, I did help out in part of the project. Okay, so what I did is I was involved in two, not to say simple, but it's actually quite direct studies to find out the impact of heat stress in broiler production. So this is actually by comparing the two main systems that we are using in broiler production, the open-sided housing and then the closed-sided housing. Okay, so basically for study one, the objective of this study is mainly is actually a very direct study just to show the difference in temperature control between open and closed-sided housing system. So we want to see how good is actually this system, the two systems here, in controlling the variation of the temperature, especially from the external, the environment. So the two farms, they are located very near to each other, and then they are owned by one owner, okay? And then the parameter that we record basically is actually, sorry, this is actually some correction. Yeah, it is basically it's only temperature. For this study, it is only temperature. We record that every half an hour for the period of 60 hours, just to observe is there any difference between the closed and open house. Okay, so right now this is actually a graph showing the internal and external temperature of an open-sided house. So please remember this is for open house. The blue line represent the open house, where the red color, the red line represent external temperature. So just to conclude on this graph, basically, if you observe carefully here, the pattern of the temperature, the internal house temperature of a closed house is almost mimicking the pattern of the external temperature, which means when it comes to the control of the variation, it is very difficult for open house to perform that. Okay. This is actually much better. This is a graph showing the internal and external temperature of a closed-sided house, okay, with the same period of time, okay, at the same time, they are taken actually evaluated at the same time, but then this is for closed house. So depending on the target or the technical aspect of the closed house here, if it's functioning well, or if it's maintaining well or functioning well, okay, you are able to have a much more grasp on the function, on the control of temperature. So like what I mentioned just now, this is actually open house. The temperature within the house is actually almost similar like the external temperature, the surrounding temperature. But for closed house, this is actually according to what they want. Although maybe it cannot 100% represent the target that you want. But the thing is that at least we are able to control this variation. Okay. Okay, so just now the study one is mainly about temperature control for open and closed house. And then we try to go deeper after that, because if you're looking only into temperature, it is actually not that accurate, not to say not accurate, but that is only part of the consideration, okay? Because anyhow, the heat stress is mainly affected by the heat stress, the temperature and even the humidity. So the study two, the objective of this study is to measure and evaluate the risk of heat stress. Okay, sorry, this actually is some correction. The HSI, the heat stress index in open and closed-sided housing system. So for this study, we tend to drag it longer. Instead of doing 60 hours, we drag it to 6 days. Okay, we do it for 6 days just to make sure everything is not because of the coincidental finding. It is because of a certain true result. So what we did is that we measured the temperature and relative humidity together. Okay. And this information here are being conveyed into the heat stress index. Okay. And then this is the repetition. This is actually the calculation. And just a reminder, HSI of more than 160 indicate there's an increased risk of stress level in the birds. So our target is actually to have HSI lower than 160 or much more lower than that. Okay, firstly, let me show you the graph here. This is the temperature, relative humidity, and heat stress index of an open house again. Okay, open house here. So basically, the green line is the HSI. Okay, the sum of both temperature and humidity. And we have temperature in the blue dotted line, and then humidity, okay, in the red dotted line. So basically, if you really want to look carefully here, the trend of temperature and humidity, they are almost like contrast to each other. Yeah, when the temperature is high, normally the humidity is low. When the humidity is high, then it will go the other way. Okay, but then anyhow, and when we tend to add up together, we tend to see, okay, this is basically for the open house. We try to aim for HSI less than 160. But if you see throughout the 6 days period, yeah, this is actually the whole 6 day period. Okay, so you can observe a lot of time in the open house. The birds are actually being subjected or exposed to the risk of heat stress. Okay, they are actually HSI more than 160 in a lot of time, especially when the humidity is very high. Okay, for example, like late evening or even at night or even after rain. Okay, this is on the other hand, we have the temperature, relative humidity, and heat stress index of a closed house over time, the same time. Okay, 6 days. If you compare carefully here. So for open house, you'll be seeing a very frequently happen HSI more than 160. But for closed house, if it's functioning well, yeah, you can actually see a very markedly reduction of the risk of HSI, for heat stress in closed house system. So basically, the trend of the temperature and humidity is almost similar, but because in closed house we are able to control this kind of like internal parameters like temperature and humidity much better than open house. So that's why you can see the variation is much lesser than open house. Okay, just to double confirm, because the graph may show that the birds are being exposed to stimulant, to heat stress. But then the thing is that, let's say if it's not tally with the production performance here, the result, the graph result doesn't bring any meaning actually. So we tend to collect, this is actually the data that we collect from a period of 2 years, almost 2 years, 2017 to 2018. These are the final production performance data from the same producer. Okay, so basically the producer, he has both open and closed house system, okay, not only located proximity, it is really located in all the different regions, okay. So basically we tend to compile all the results that they have, okay, all the farms that they have. We try to separate it into closed, open, and then we tend to, conduct analysis, okay, to derive to certain, numbers that, and then to compare whether there's any difference or not. So basically, okay, if you see carefully, it could be different because actually, when it comes to the operation, it could differ sometimes, okay, depending on the demand or maybe depending on the performance of the birds. So basically for closed house, we have actually included 48 cycles of production, whereas for open house, we have included 61 cycles of production. These are the numbers of broilers, for closed house, about 5 million plus, whereas for the open house, it's about 2.8 million, okay, almost reaching 3 million. So, okay, so you try to look at the numbers, which is actually highlighted in red. So when we did the analysis, after we did the analysis, we tend to observe a very significant difference between the closed house and open house. When it comes to performance parameters like stocking density, okay, this stocking density, it depends on birds, depends on the producer as well. So stocking density for sure, okay, closed house, you are putting, lower square feet per birds, okay, because anyhow the environment is much better for birds to be in. Okay, we try to look at the production performance of a feed conversion ratio, the liability and average weight. For closed house system, the average feed conversion ratio, the liability and average weight, they are all actually significantly much better than open house. So the observation that we have over here is actually, somehow it correlates with the results that we have, from the heat stress index, okay? So basically, from the two trials, the two trials are pretty simple, pretty direct, okay? Just to measure the temperature, one is to measure temperature, another one is to measure the temperature and humidity, and then just to calculate and then to compare, okay? But the thing is that from the two trials, from the two studies, we're able to see the importance of controlling heat stress here to minimize the impact of the both performance and the negative effects in poultry, especially high-performing types of poultry, okay, such as broilers, breeders, and even layers. So this is actually significantly seen in the results that we have here. So open house, I'm not sure whether it can be represented in other operations, because other operations, they might have other sorts of practice, okay, or maybe other results. But in this operation, in this producer, we tend to see, okay, when it comes to higher amount of heat stress, it can correlate with the lower production performance, okay, the effect on the FCR, the body weight, okay, and even the mortality and liability. So from the two trials, we're able to see the benefit of closed-sided housing system in controlling and minimizing the fluctuation of internal house temperature and the humidity as well. So if you're able to control, grasp hold of these two important internal parameters here, you're able to reduce the negative effect of HS a lot in the performance. So this can be done in a closed house system, but in open house system, it depends on how good are you. The control effect, the control over these two parameters is still very limited and very, it's very difficult for us to control. So mainly we tend to always say for open house, we tend to depend on the natural or the luck a lot, okay? So if it rains a lot, then there'll be a lot of issue. No matter how you control, there'll still be issue, okay? So in the long run, for poultry producers, especially for broilers, we are actually trying to pinpoint, although the investment could be much more costly, okay, for closed house, but in long run, if let's say if you want to produce a very consistent production performance, okay, a very good consistent result, or even a much more superior result than open house, basically the closed-sided housing system of the closed house is an option for modern breeds, because modern breeds, they are growing very fast, they are very prone to stress. So let's say if the breeds is actually evolving further, okay, they are growing much faster, and then they might be compromising other functional part of the body, which means the immune system might be compromised, or even the susceptibility to heat stress. So in this situation, as it goes on in future, the closed house system is actually a much better option because you are actually trying to control the internal temperature, the internal environment to a much more conducive environment for the birds to perform per standard, or maybe much better than standard. Anyhow, because closed house system is a very good system, but it is very important for us to complement this system with a very good farming practice, and the integrity of the microclimate of closed-sided house, of this system, it should be very, well taken care of. It should be maintained, and it should be made sure, because for closed house system, if you're able to maintain the function of this system, it brings you a very, very positive benefit. But let's say if there's a lot of error, when it comes to, like, for example, adjusting, calibrating, or even the maintenance of this function, there will be a lot of detrimental effect. Thank you so much. So basically, I would like to acknowledge all these amazing people, and even the corporation, FLFAM, for Dato, Dr. Yap and Dr. Raymond, and even my company, Rhône, Malaysia, for giving me the opportunity to share out, what we did, in this project, and then some kind of like findings that we have, which we think is really important for poultry producers, and especially for broilers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
As we listen to the next speaker, Dr. Nafisah. Dr. Nafisah is currently with Yenher Agro-Products in Rhône. She is working as technical services in the poultry and product marketing. She is a veterinarian herself from UPM since 2014 and have previously worked in FLFAM farms in Rhône. Dr. Nafisah is going to talk about predictive flock health services and farm management. So I think this again would reflect to some of our understanding about what the industry is doing and how it is complying and converging into some of the MYGAP compliances and requirements that they're looking at. So Dr. Nafisah, please present your views to us and enlighten us.
Thank you, Mr. Kit, for the introduction. So, good morning, everyone. And before I start, I would like to thank FLFAM and Agro-Food Productivity Nexus of Malaysian Productivity Corporation for this great opportunity. My topic today is talking about the current and the future of flock health services and farm management, or we call it as predictive flock health services and farm management. So to begin with, we are all aware by now, the poultry is actually #1 meat produced in the world, with a projected increase of 3.5% in demand per year. And it is the cheapest source of protein available from farming. Hence, the poultry industry is pressured to produce large in quantity, but with improved quality. The time has come, it has to be done differently so that the goals can be achieved. The goals for poultry industry players are to be in line with regulatory requirements, GAHP and animal welfare requirements, at the same time maintain good flock health, profitable while meeting the supply and demand. But the journey to achieve all these goals comes with great challenges. First and foremost, it is not only manpower availability, but also to get skillful manpower. Time is actually the essence of successful operation, but producers are still facing problems of getting data from farms or farmers on time, thus making them difficult to react for any issues at the farm level. And intensification of farming practices and managing large and multiple houses or farms require precision and timely decision. Even though the broiler growth cycle to market is becoming shorter and shorter day by day, the pressure is there to get the house ready for the next cycle. What happens then? The farmer compromise on the cleaning and disinfection. There is one study by USDA. They reported every 25,000 of broiler birds, produce about 1 metric ton of feces per day. Just 1 gram from an infected bird is sufficient to infect 1 million of broilers. What else if there are pathogens like Salmonella, Campylobacter, or any other avian viruses? With the presence of naive hosts in the next cycle, disease prevention becomes a nightmare. Producers spend a lot of money on antibiotics and other treatment options. While we are struggling with all the challenges, there comes another pressure, the demand for safe food, which are the antibiotic residue-free products and organic products. So the pressure for the producers is definitely growing. The question now is, how are we going to manage them? Before I walk through on how we manage them in future, let us just glance through of what are we doing currently and previously. The traditional approach by animal productionists are: farmers have to walk house by house on a daily basis to check for mortality, any abnormal behavior or clinical signs, changes in litter conditions, and to ensure all equipment are in good functioning condition. Weekly or routinely, data such as weight, temperature, humidity, lighting, ammonia are collected. But most of the time, what happens is these data are not reported timely or accurately to the management or the producers. So it cannot be analyzed meaningfully for an immediate monitoring and action. So the problems left unnoticed until it becomes severe or obvious. By then, the treatment or corrective action will become very, very costly. From the veterinary aspect, we are often called when complaints are received, except for the farms with in-house veterinarian or farm veterinarian. We may then collect history, walk around the house, conduct postmortems, and then sample collection. At this level, we may suggest some treatment based on tentative diagnosis, while waiting for the definitive diagnosis from the lab reports. But sample collection, transportation, and laboratory analysis and final results often take from a few days to weeks. By then, the birds probably are dead or harvested. This is no longer called as good veterinary service. Let's say if it's an infectious disease or notifiable disease like HPAI, the disease already spread far and wide, not only to other flocks within the same farm, but to neighboring states or even countries. So we are in need to apply real-time detection and predictive concept for livestock. So this will be another area that we need to further discuss. But why we have to do this? Because with predictive concept, timely monitoring and evaluation of the population of chicken is practiced, where predictive data serves as a guide for risk mitigation measures to be applied. And also good preventive veterinary health medicine, for example, we can plan the use of vaccine, appropriate vaccine, probiotics, and vitamins instead of purely depending on antibiotics. And of course, preventive farm management. But how are we going to do this? Technology is the definite answer. Digital services and solutions are changing the way we learn, live, and also work. And livestock production has no different. The industry needs to move forward with evolving technologies. Everyone is now talking about Internet of Things, IoT, and artificial intelligence. They are now booming, in fact. Farm equipment like this can be embedded with sensors, and robots can be programmed using AI to collect real-time data. With internet connection, these data then sent to a cloud-based management system to interpret in an easy-to-interpret format. And then predictive modeling can be made where multiple data are integrated and algorithms are used to predict what could happen almost accurately because sensors cannot cheat. For example, WHO predicted by year 2050, we will have 10 millions of human deaths annually due to pathogen become resistant to different type of treatments. That is why there is a big call for the use of antibiotic responsibly and the need to find alternatives to it, like how we Malaysians are doing now. Okay, here are some examples of technologies which are already available and being practiced in some European countries, but these are usually mainly focused on human point of care. But for livestock, they still need a lot of research and trials. There are a lot of pros and cons from all this technology. Okay, biosensors, for example, if the device has bioreceptor for avian influenza, positive result from the sample we take will immediately alarm the user by handphone or or laptop. And wearable sensors are attached to animal body. In our case, is the poultry. These sensors are actually designed with accelerometer and also thermistor. Accelerometer will monitor the activity of the bird, and thermistor will monitor the temperature of the bird. With this data, they can use algorithms to predict the pathogenicity of an pathogen from the time taken of reduced activity and increased temperature. Isn't this cool? This kind of sensor can also be embedded in the weighing scale. So producers can actually monitor the body weight and CV real time. An algorithm can predict the body weight 14 days later from the current body weight. So with this data, they are able to plan the catching and also do feed order and also forecast. While non-invasive, non-contact technology, we can use device that record the voice and detect the any defects in the welfare, production, and health management. Also image analysis, like using camera, image analysis by optic flow and also infrared imaging. And not to forget robots. Robots will reduce the need for labor. They can be on duty 24 hours and report remotely. The use of 5G and beyond technology can enable us to control multiple robots from multiple houses from our office. This will keep the chicks moving and at the same time improve their weight gain and FCR. It can reduce floor aches in breeder, and at the same time while moving they scrape the litter. So they can dry the litter and helps to control the humidity and improve the leg health of the birds. These technology are already in use by companies like Hubbard and Cargill. One biggest advantage is there is no human contact needed if we are using this technology. This is such a great assistance for improved biosecurity. So I would like to share some scenarios or possibilities of innovation in our poultry industry. More importantly, this technology aims to identify critical issues causing process inefficiency at any stage. For poultry production chain, from breeding farm until the slaughterhouses, data collected from many sources and centralized in a very secured way and processed for real-time data observation and prediction. The result showed that the information gathered can be used to make different suggestions or KPI standards to improve the loopholes along the process and also guarantee us the poultry welfare throughout the chain and ultimately improve the meat quality. At the hatchery level, there are technologies are evolving where we can do sexing before hatch. This is definitely useful for layer breeder for female sexing. And we can also do in ovo and post-hatching feeding as early nutrition programming to support the DOC during transportation delay. And at the same time, the nutrition can improve the gut health. And here we can stop the dependency for AGPs. At the farm and slaughterhouse level, vets can predict flock health trends by using avian flock health assessment system. This is actually a research in collaboration with Dr. Yap and Dr. Raymond. And vets can also use portable diagnostic kit for multiple diseases, which can provide the result within 2 hours. And at farms and processing plants, we can use we have tools to detect antimicrobial residue within 3 hours. Previously, it takes up to 12 hours to 5 days. So, simply put, the traditional action of productionists and veterinarians are no longer useful in near future. We need real data, fast data, for immediate and accurate corrective action to reduce associated cost and loss, and to take preventive action to prevent potential disease outbreak, whether within livestock or zoonotic diseases. At this level, we call it farm-generated data. Apart from farm-generated data, environmental, geographical, and web-based data are equally important for predictive models. Web-based data such as a search query from Google and Twitter able to detect peak seasonal influenza 6 weeks in advance with good accuracy. This method is said to be faster than CDC. Global environmental or climate changes are also happening, and humans expand boundaries of cities, living areas, and agricultural land. And there is a study reporting 70% of the zoonotic diseases are transmitted from wild birds to humans through livestock. Thus, information such as weather forecasts, movement of wild animals, or flyways of migratory birds are crucial, particularly for poultry industry. For big data analytics with volume, variety, and velocity to produce a predictive model. So, predictive model can be obtained from data gathered and analyzed using algorithm for individual farms. But I believe we can put our hands together, especially between the government and private sector, to produce more big data, which will benefit the entire industry, not only within our country, but worldwide. Just like how now we are obtaining data on COVID-19 status from every district of the world at our fingertips. Same way, soon we will be able to get such data for any livestock disease and performance status. And of course, all the technologies or anything, we will have challenges and barriers in predictive models. So those challenges are sensors and biosensors for diagnosis of poultry infection still need a lot of research that can match the commercial poultry house setting. Internet connection in farms and rural setting will inhibit the real-time data receiving from wearable and non-contact technologies. From here, we will lose the data from those areas. And it's also crucial for producers or farmers to obtain education or skills related to the technologies. It is not easy to educate them, especially those who cannot accept modernization. And then for data obtained from web-based, bias and noises will be there. So we need to be carefully remove them from our analysis. And finally, it involves multiple stakeholders and farmers' data governance. And not many farmers will favor to have their data publicly available. With that, I thank you.
Nafisah, thank you very much for your presentation. I enjoyed very much, and I feel very confident what you have just said. Moving on, I'd like to pass this on to Dr. Yenher. He's going to talk about poultry health and disease. on how to enhance animal health and productivity. Dr. Lee, he is currently with Ceva Animal Health Malaysia, Sdn Bhd, working as veterinary service managers. Dr. Lee is also a veterinarian from UPM since 2014. And he has worked on a whole series of techniques on poultry, swine, as well as data analysis. So a lot of the work that he has done and his studies are very much based on what he's going to talk to us. So Dr. Lee, illuminate us on the next 20 minutes on how you're going to deal with these issues. Please go ahead, Dr. Lee.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you to Mr. Kit, Mr. Chairman. And of course, good afternoon to all the participants of this FLFAM and MPC webinar. So it is indeed a pleasure to be able to share the company's thoughts and also to raise some awareness, because I believe in this short 20 minutes, very well said, we're not going to solve the problems of the producers or the problems of the country within 20 minutes, but it's just here to share our thoughts and raise awareness on what we're going to talk about. So this specific topic about poultry health and diseases and how it enhances productivity and yield. I'm sure if you ask every producer, each and every one of us want to improve productivity. So we talk about better feed, better chicks, better management, better equipment, and of course, better disease control. So the question is, yes, we definitely need to improve, but how and what to improve? So thanks to Nafisah's presentation has really set the stage really suitable for my part, because I'm going to talk about, besides the concept that she's talking about, let me share with you some of the works that the animal health companies like Ceva, which is the company that I'm working with, some of the current works which is already happening. So yeah, let me share with you. Yeah, so some questions that I always spoke about is we always have lots of problems in the producer's mind. It's easy to make an assumption. For example, if you look at the first question, I'm not going to go through all of them. The easiest one is, do you even know why the performance of the company has dropped last year? So sometimes we heard producers giving a feedback that the feed wasn't as good or have a certain disease challenge. But is that all? Because when we are talking about numbers of birds in poultry production in a year, let's say, so 1 million is not much. We are talking about 50, 60, or even 100 millions of broilers being produced in big integrators. So it's important to pinpoint this exact part in order to improve. And of course, if you're able, then you can able to answer those questions about how can I reduce the gap between my good and poor farms. You always have more than one farm, and are you able to relate and find out the reasons that both why your good farms and poor farms are performing what they are performing right now, the exact reasons with that. So in the terms and in the context of poultry health and diseases, let me share with you. So in the good old days of disease diagnosis, I agree with Nafisah a lot. So we are in agreement, very complimenting it. Good old days, you know, whenever we see swollen kidneys and we see spike in mortality. So it's nice, you know, we send a picture to the producers, and even before waiting for any results, it is very conclusive. You know, those days they talk about IB variant infections, QX, or nowadays they talk about astrovirus. So it's easier to pinpoint to certain of these. But we talk about these good old days of disease diagnosis. So there's a lot of good points about that, because it's very fast, right? And we need to do some treatment. But I would say it is highly influenced by experience and also perception of that particular veterinarians or farm manager that has. So it is not bad, but it's just very subjective, and you can end up having 5 opinions on the same bird, right? So I think that's also confusing for certain producers. So what we are moving on is, we call it the enhanced disease diagnosis is, yes, later on, we don't rely on one bird or post-mortem anymore. So we talk about the flock, we talk about serology, ELISA, more data to be here. So with the advancement of molecular diagnostic, for example, here, we look about more science based decision. When we talk about ID variant, we talk about which variant are we referring, because QX, Malaysian variant, they behave very differently as well. So we talk about other variants as well. So this one is how I would say is more data driven. It takes more time, but at least you are more sure about the actions that you are going to do and the investment that you are going to put in, because this will give you a better picture. Very similar to the prescriptive and predictive, but of course, this is what is being currently done. It's not the future. What I would say is future, I agree with it. You need a big volume of data in order to diagnose the disease and to work more real time. So this is definitely the aim that we are all moving to. So similarly, set the stage very nicely. We talk about big data analytics in terms of disease prevention. So besides just now, serology and molecular diagnostics are very direct ones for disease diagnostics. Now we are incorporating with our producers to get more production data in order to diagnose disease. It's not just getting PCR to diagnose disease. We want to look at more meaningful production data into this one. So this is just one example with people which is not familiar with big data analytics. So these are some examples I gave in their respective industry. They are very branded and well done on all the operations. One of the reasons is because they analyze a lot of data behind all the actions that they have done and they will be going to do. So if it goes into this one, unlike all those Excel files that the producers may have, or maybe your gross profit, your net profit, your PR, your FCR, whatever that you have, this is very different from big data analytics. So having some of this data will really help. It's a very nice way of talking about descriptive and diagnostic data. So you describe what you have done, yeah, your profit. But in terms of predictive and prescriptive, I will describe more a little bit on how to do it. Yeah, it's not just a concept. We can really do it in Malaysia with Ceva. So very large and diverse data. So we are not talking terabytes and zettabytes. For example, zettabytes have 12 zeros behind that. So you could calculate. It's a very large amount of data. So different sources. Sensors are definitely one of them, audio, video, but a lot of them, if it is from professional integrated services, will be better. So today's in Ceva, we'll talk about 3 professional services that we are giving in a hatchery, in the farm, and in the slaughterhouses in order to enhance this part. So the questions comes to where to start in poultry production. So this is a platform, we call it the Poultry Data Pulse. So it is by Ceva and for Ceva customers. So this is the example, real-time data that you're able to harvest on, yeah, it is a real-time. So we prepare for producers. It's already in some of the producers in Malaysia. So this is just one part of it where you could see where it's going right, where it's going wrong. And of course, you could incorporate if you have daily sensors into this part as well. So besides that, a very general comparison of those descriptive or data like your average weight, your margin, your feed conversion rate, or your antibiotic usage per bird, or yeah, it is all very important KPIs that we could set and we could work with and you could analyze in those years. So this is some example that if we are willing, we can work together. So this is something that you can look forward to see about. And these are some important ones you will see repeatedly, CHIC program. So it's a services of vaccination being done in the hatchery. So GPS is a farm disease surveillance data input from a Ceva team. And of course, SRC that I'll talk about later on is in the slaughterhouse, getting flock health. They are all flock health and vaccination related data to be put into this big data analytics. It's part of it, not whole of it. So if I keep the ball rolling and talking about these industry percentages from farm to fork, right? This is just a general ones, I would say, but they are not far away. So let's say hatchery, we talk about 50% losses of the chicks not hatching, right? So in broilers, we lose another 6%, in processing, we lose some, distribution, and of course, consumerism. So in these places, it's important where to get data. And in terms of production, when we talk about X-farm at this moment, so this is the part where we talk about having better chicks is hatchery, broiler, and processing. So in a hatchery, briefly mentioned again, a chick program is a very accredited program being done all over by Ceva technician in all over the world. So here we have data inputs on predicting how your vaccination is being done, because then you would like to relate to the broiler performances, not only the ELISA performances, your growth, your mortality, and also your housing, your heat, everything which is here will incorporate under this GPS. And of course, better newer services, we talk about the slaughterhouse respiratory check. So it is not something molecular or not something definitive, but it's a very general one where you're able to pinpoint there's respiratory problems going on. So I will share with you some videos with this. So if I were to say the key areas for data collection, we need more collections coming not only from a human. If you see here during incubation, if you have some automation, because I agree, machines don't lie if they are well maintained, sensors. So you could see incubation during the transfer, day 18.5, during the pull out, and during the day O check period. There's a lot. And of course, in the farm, lots of it could be done. We talk about these data being collected. And of course, the last one is in the slaughterhouses. So let me share a bit of it in this part. So in the hatchery, the services include chip program, laser live, and egg inject. Yeah, they are not vaccines. Yeah, it's just automation solutions from Ceva. So if we look about that, this is not something to promote, but to share with you that with the advancement in technology, last time when we do candling, is mainly to remove infertile. But never will you have any information on your middle, late, and rotten eggs accurate information. So what hatcheries used to have is a sampling or assumption. If I were to take 10 trays or were to do some breakout analysis at the end of the day, I can get a sampling or representative of what's being done. So it is still a sampling, but compared to a laser live, let's say automation, you are able to get all the data. It is not sampling anymore that you're going to represent the whole of it. Each and every egg being termed as middle, late, rotten will be generated and updated into the system as well. So egg inject is another automation where you can inject the vaccines, okay, into the eggs. We're talking about in ovo vaccination. It has happened in Malaysia before, but those times probably the advancement in terms of incubation and hatchery hygiene and the structure is not that ready. But nowadays in Asia, Southeast Asia, it is being well adopted. So in this part is same. Similarly, with the in ovo chip program services from the company, you are able to accurately see how much and how accurate the vaccines have been being put in, and all this give you a good guarantee of how the flock health and how the flock is being protected later on in the field. So I will skip the part on farm data because I think most of that is I will not say it out, but I like to share with the audience about this slaughterhouse respiratory check, where the Ceva team goes into the slaughterhouse. So some of it is very important, where people look less into it, because a lot of the time we go into this X farm and we thought that the process is complete once we go X farm out of the farm gate. But in fact, one of the important on terms of flock health is the date on arrival analysis. And just now, there are numerous causes. It could be from a disease from the farm. It could be catching problems. It could be due to transport as well. You know, heat stress or heat stroke that that we are talking about. But if you are not looking into it, and of course you miss this much of data going into it. And I'm sure slaughterhouse is a very suitable place for you to collect lots of data. Yeah, in terms of disease diagnosis. And not only that, and you have a nice system, you all talk about the uniformity, the carcass yield, the condemnation. So it's a lot of it to be done. And of course, you can highlight. So these are some pictures that I have done in Malaysia's slaughterhouses. So it's easier. I have not seen so many viscera or the organs of the birds in my life besides in the slaughterhouses. I'm seeing like 5,000 in a single line per hour. I've not done 5,000 postmortem in my life, to be very frank. But in the slaughterhouses, I'm looking at 60,000 or hundreds of thousands of birds. So it's a good way to see a lot of them when they are being condemned. And this is the real figure as well. So what I would like to emphasize is, in terms of a lot of diagnosis, when we take blood or when we take organs for PCR sampling, a lot of them are sampling. Means I got to take one and I hope that it will represent the flock. But in terms of slaughterhouses and in hatcheries, you are taking each and every one of them, which is why it means more. Yeah, you are more confident in making a data-driven decisions when you have this information with you. So, of course, just to share with it, this data management services is offered by Ceva. So we have a data analyst, which we are working with. So I'm definitely not the data analyst that you are looking at. So we are just sharing with you. So we are doing it quite a lot in our producers. So and Malaysia as well, it's already been done. So those who have more interest, we can definitely speak more about that, because the aim is definitely to increase the production by looking more into details of the health and diagnostic part within more decisions. So some of the take-home message I always say is time to answer them. If you do not have the answer yet, between why your flocks are not performing as well compared to last year, am I going to choose another breed? And how sure are you that the vaccination that you have invested is giving you good protection? And do you still want to look at sampling pictures and videos just to make a decision for a big company and for growth, and especially during the difficult times? So, yep. And of course, some of the take-home message we talk about is similar. Farm disease diagnostics should not base on a veterinarian anymore. So we should incorporate technologies, automation, and of course, besides farm hatcheries, when we talk about, just now I didn't speak much about that, vertical diseases. We talk about diseases that spread from breeders to broilers. So it's much better if you can look into the infertility, talk about the early death, the middle death, and late death percentages that you will never get in a hatchery, because no human can do it for each and every egg. We can reassure you, nobody will do that. But with automation and machines, you are able to see that in order to diagnose vertical diseases better. So, but of course, when we say data analytics is good, it's not just the best side, because it can be ending up in a great mess, if you do not know what to do with it. Data will not give you a nice information if there's no refinement, which is why in terms of flock health, Ceva is doing it with the data related to flock health to see. So some of the services that I mentioned in hatchery and in the farm and in the slaughterhouses is just to complement and work with producers in Malaysia. So with that, I come to the end of my sharing. So yeah, thank you.
Dr. Lee, that's very, very interesting. Thank you very much. Well, we have heard from 4 experts, each of them in their own field of work. I'm also very excited here because I've got quite a big chunk of questions that have been put on here in the chat board here. And I don't think I want to go through each and every one of them because that would take too much time, but I would pack them all together in groups of topics, and then I would ask from each of the experts for your response. I'd like to start with Dr. Razli. Yeah. Dr. Razli, there is a project led by the AFPN of the MPC that have demonstrated that the MYGAP, as well as the conversion of open system, open-sided house, as well as opposed to the closed-sided house, has improved productivity in broiler farms. Now, the question is, what and how is MYGAP being promoted to achieve this? Because I mentioned earlier that will there be a different set of compliances for open-sided house as opposed to closed-sided house? And what is the DOA attempting to view this kind of production services, production systems, sorry. There has been a comment that says the MYGAP is only very much for the big companies, the big producers, whereas for the small, micro, medium farms, they may not afford these kinds of management systems, rightly or wrongly. How do you, Dr. Razli, comment on this?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Actually, from the Department of Veterinary Services, when we deal with this certification, we are focused on the good animal husbandry practice. So for the closed house, there will be requirement for them to comply with the good animal husbandry practice as well as open house. So we will go towards the guideline by good animal husbandry practice. So the guideline will be in the checklist and we will go through it. And it's actually, the certification is open to whether it is closed house or open house. Yeah, that's in terms of a certification. And for this question on this smallholder, actually for this smallholder ruminant, we already certified about 15 cattle farm. It's quite, it's not a big, and it's not a big farm, but it is a small farm. In terms of a good animal husbandry practice, this small farm, they are comply with the requirement. So we do the certification for them, and in terms of that, we also guide them to ensure that they are fulfilled with this minimum standard of a good animal husbandry practice. So this certification is not for the big company. It is for our industry. That's beneficial for small and medium and large industry for this livestock and the animal-based products processing plant. Yeah.
Okay, I got that noted. Thank you, Dr. Razli.
Yeah.
This is a series of questions I'm directing to Dr. Nafisah. How much of science input versus organizational and management input that can improve the productivity in the poultry production? Now, this question is posed in such a way because they ask participants who are asking what kind of sensors in the poultry house is useful to pre-alarm a disease besides analyzing the pathogen. There's also another question. It says, as a consumer, how can I navigate traceability through big data information or IoT technology that can give me information how the chicken has been raised, fed, medicated, or processed? These are all wonderful questions. How would you appease these people who are thinking in these kind of terms? Nafisah.
Hi, thank you for the question. I will try my best to answer. Okay. For the technology, this IoT technology and prediction, I believe there are already some big integrators are already using this method, but I cannot mention who are they. But for the small scale farmers, they may slowly adapt to these technologies. But just like how once upon a time, only the rich ones can have the handphones, but nowadays almost everybody is having it. But soon, I believe those sensors or wearable sensors, biosensors or robotic will be easily adapted through demand. And for question by Ms. Ani, as a consumer, how can I navigate traceability through big data or IoT? At the moment, in our country, we are not generally sharing the data between integrators and also not even sharing the data with the government. But I think in future, we will be able to have something like a QR code on the products where you can know where the source of the DOCs are coming from and where are they raised and how was the performance of that particular flock by using big data analytics. These are all when we can work together in future. And there's another question, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Kit, what kind of sensor in the poultry house is useful to pre-alarm disease besides analyzing the pathogens? For example, those wearable sensors which are able to trace the animal activity or behavior and also temperature of the animal is indicating diseases actually. For example, like I mentioned just now, sensors attached to the poultry body detect the increase in temperature and reduce activity. And from there, the predictive model can predict the pathogenicity of the pathogen. For example, from the time taken of reduced activity and increased temperature to death. Let's say the time is short, means it's a very highly pathogenic disease. Did I miss any of the question, Mr. Kit?
You're doing very well, Nafisah. I'm going to stay on with you, so don't go away. The point you made about predictive models. Yeah. This is a question from myself.
Okay.
Are these predictive models developed by individual farms, or are they generic predictive models that can be widely used by most other farmers who may not have the capacity to develop these models themselves?
Okay, these kind of predictive models, those farms which are already adopting the technologies, cloud-based management, they can generate those data from their own farm performance. But for in terms of general usage, actually data can be gathered by government agencies for that particular district or state to generally inform or generally provide the data for specific or particular area of for the information such as upcoming diseases or ongoing challenges in nearby condition through internet or through search by Twitter or Google query. So not necessarily they themselves have to adapt the technology, but they can use a medium like from the DBS websites or any FLFAM websites or MPC websites. Those data can be gathered and analyzed for predictive models for general use.
Okay, that sounds convincing. It is not really exclusive, this kind of information and these kind of applications and resources. David, there is this point I have here, and the question is, are enzymes widely used in industry, and what are the latest trends in enzyme usage in terms of types, dosage, and purpose? And he wants to know, what about glucose oxidase? What can you tell us about this?
Perhaps I try to answer a part of the question because I'm not that familiar with enzymes. But the thing is that according to experience, okay, the common type of enzymes that being used in the production, poultry production, they are, for example, like phytase. There's actually xylanase, or even there's another one, xylanase, and even for beta-glucanase. Yeah, these are the few important enzymes that are commonly used. Because anyhow, for the diet of poultry, they are used. We are using actually a lot of like corn, starch-based product. We are using a lot of corn, soya bean, and even for wheat. Wheat-related product. So these enzymes are actually proved to be quite effective here in terms of like digesting this actually kind of like raw material. But if it's dosage and inclusion rate, I'm not that pretty sure, because I believe every supplier of enzymes, when they produce enzyme or when they're trying to promote their product, the inclusion rate or maybe the dosage, it could be different. I think it is actually based on the supplier or the product itself. Okay. And the last question about, there's another last question about there's one oxidase. Yeah. Glucose oxidase. I do not have any knowledge on that. I'll try to check it out. If possible, I'll try to answer after that.
Okay, so for the person who's asked this question, you may want to contact Dr. David and pursue further in this subject. The contact on Dr. David is available in this webinar, so search for it. David, don't go away. Another point I want to ask you is the consideration of feed. When we know that 75% of the cost of production is concerning the feed to the birds, the animals, how much of that feed, the science on the feed, should we understand? Because the cost of production is so highly affected that we may not be feeding the birds correctly. Yep. How would you resolve an issue like this, David?
It's pretty complicated to answer here. Okay, the thing is that, okay, as we know, like what the the question being asked, okay, feed comprises a major part of the cost of the production. Okay, it could be 60%, over 60%, it could be 70%. And I believe for feed, as it comprises a big part of the whole cost, okay, a lot of research being done on this aspect. But as you know, when it comes to feed, there's actually a lot of ranges. I mean, it could be different raw materials, it could be different nutrients, or even it could be different kind of additives. So research and studies are there, but when it comes to coverage, whether we can actually, we did enough, okay, we conducted enough studies or even coverage, I mean, to understand, to try to extract the most information from this feed, those are actually quite complicated to answer. I'm not so sure about this, actually. Yeah.
Okay. We can hold that again, and the person who's asking this question can also direct more specific in what you're looking for in the feed. I'd like to move on to Dr. Lee. Your topic on animal health, poultry health and disease, and you came up in your presentation with examples of what some big producers are doing, capable of doing. Now, how do we blend this? Because I have a problem here. I am reading the minds of the small producers in Malaysia, the poultry producers in Malaysia. And when they look at your presentation, they are saying that, you know, hey, I can't play this. This is way beyond me, both in science and in capacity on building all of these equipment and machineries. How do you blend these issues with what you have just talked and showed to us, that they may still have a future in this game? How can you appease these problems, Dr. Lee?
Hi, Mr. Kit. I understood where the question is coming from. Yeah, it is in fact not abnormal for the slightly, let's say, the smaller producers to feel that, because in order to predict or to have a good comprehensive set of data, we need transparency, right from the feed, right from the breeder sources, right from what is happening in hatchery, and of course what is happening after in the farm. So let's say if today you are only the producers in the farm, so you buy your chicks and you buy the feed from other people, and you do not care so much after it goes ex-farm. So the most that we can invest is on the disease investigation, and of course let's say all the relations is in the farm. But still, we try to control whatever that we could. So there's not a way that there's always things that we could control and things that we could not control of. Yeah. So I mean the benefits. You could say that you can control less factors in these cases. Yeah, but it's still possible. You could still see some relation that when I get, for example, chicks of this weight or chicks of this breeder age or chicks from a certain transferring from certain hatchery have a better performances at first 2 weeks, and it correlates with your antibiotic usage, for example, I'm giving. It's still useful. It sometimes does not use a lot of investment in contrast to that. So there's still a way to improve, I would say.
Dr. Razli, there is a comment that says in the study that says poultry integrators in the southern region of peninsular Malaysia have a better performance in productivity than in the northern states in peninsular Malaysia. Is that true? And if so, why? Dr. Razli.
Yeah. So there's a lot of factors, but what we have our record now that a lot of farms in southern, they are more practical and they are comply with the requirement, especially they are comply with the requirement to be able to export their live chicken to Singapore. And this all farm, they are comply and be able to do all these element in the good animal husbandry practice, so that when they are be able to comply with this requirement and with this initiative by the department, so we are trying to get them to explore the market, and they can gain their approval to be able to export to Singapore. That's why a lot of farm, and because of this the distance between the Singapore and the southern area is quite the distance is quite short, and it is not long distance, so they be able to export their product easily to this Singapore. And then that's why we will see that a lot of farm that has been certified by Singapore authority is more at the southern part of Malaysia. I think that's one of the factor. There's a lot of factor that we can highlight in terms of this aspect. Yeah.
Okay, granted, the exportation potential is a driver for these producers to be more productive. Now, my forwarding question would now be, as for the authorities, the DVS as well as DOA, would you and how would you want to drive MYGAP? Because if you think, as you have just mentioned, that these producers who are producing for an export market in Singapore, which has got very, maybe a higher standard in quality and in compliances, that drives producers to comply on good agricultural practices, for example. If you understand this one, and if you accept this as a fact, how would you now want to drive MYGAP to the rest of the other producers, rather than in the point of, like, you know, encouraging them to comply, giving them subsidies, or giving them all the technical trainings and all that? Would that be just as effective as if you were to say, if you were to have MYGAP, we will help you export, and that drives you into that kind of productivity? Would you think like that in promoting MYGAP, Dr. Razli?
Yeah, of course. Actually, the MYGAP is one of the factors that they can have the opportunity to go to market access. So when they have the MYGAP, they as well have their product to be able to supply to other processing plant, for example, to export their product as well. Because from the farm level, they comply with all those requirements, and then they have their capacity to supply to other food processing plant, and the food processing plant as well. They can be recognized because they have the source, the source of livestock from this MYGAP. So it is a link process, or the flow. It's everything is in order, so that the market, they can export the market internationally. I think that's very important factor.
Yes, I hear you, Razli. I hear you very clearly. Mm-hmm. But what are you doing effectively? What are you doing actively in making that direction? Because just by saying to these smaller farmers and say, oh, if you have MYGAP, then you can export, and you stop there, it's not enough. You have to really drive them and push them, and you have to open the market for them. You have to open other markets besides Singapore, you know, to take these farmers along. It has to be a very active initiative from the DOA or DVS or whichever is concerned.
Yeah, that's why our agency, especially, we will work together with other agency that we will try to promote, and we participate with all other agenda or other exhibition, so that we can export, we can expose our producer, and we can gain a lot of outside market. Yeah. So because Malaysia is one of the place that a lot of advantages. Yeah. For example, if our product, we can we can explore this halal, for example, halal product, because we are well known as the halal producers products, yeah, because that's one of the a part of things that we have the advantages, yeah. So that's why all the agencies have to work together, and the important thing is that the industry itself, they have to produce the quality and the safety product, for example, and we have to maintain it. For example, for this market that we already have our confidence, and other countries are already recognize us, we have to maintain it. That's why Department really hope that the industry, livestock industry and animal-based product industry, they have to be maintain their certification, for example, and they have to implement all the regulations so that other countries trust us. Yeah, so that's very important. If other countries trust our industry, so we can survive. But it can be otherwise. Yeah,
that's very good, Razli.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I am encouraged by your commitment on this. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Welcome.
I like to close this webinar session, and I like to also take maybe just 2 minutes, Secretariat, if you allow me, to mention some of the things in my mind after I have heard from Dr. Razli, from David, from Nafisah, and from Dr. Lee. I come to this notion that when we want to talk about improving on anything, productivity, yield in any of the industry that we work with, I think first of all, we have to be brave enough to ask questions. I know this is a little bit silly because, why shouldn't anybody ask questions? I tell you, I'm in the industry myself. I mean, I export fruits and vegetables, and I do a lot of business with the Europeans. We are certified Global GAP and all of those things that we do. But as I go through the stakeholders in all of these food producers, industries, I come across farmers, and very often, and so many of them are so afraid to ask questions. They always feel that the authorities have got the final word to all of their problems. And they said, oh, I cannot do this because this is the regulation. So if I can't comply, that's it, I'm out of the game. And they're not brave enough to say, why? Why not? Another question is the matter of science. They say, oh, this is all about science. I'm not educated. I'm not really able to understand this. So they just keep quiet and they stop asking the question, can they do it? No, I'm not. I'm not a scientist. So these are some of those issues that so many of the farmers, whether you're poultry farmers, fruits, vegetable farmers, or even the aquaculture people. And lastly, in my thoughts, it's the issue of price. You ask any self-respecting farmer, whether you're a fish farmer, a vegetable farmer, or a poultry farmer, you ask a conversation about their business and they say, yeah, this business cannot do lah, very difficult, There's no price lah. Chicken price always so low. The fruit prices cannot sell, always so low. Vegetable prices also very low. And then they keep asking, they go on and on again. The same problem. It's always about price. And as though that price is, God-given. It's a standard, it's a constant. But I'm very confident and I'm very committed that price is not set by any person. Price is a function of supply and demand. If you want the price of your product to be relative to what you expect, then you have to work towards it. It's not going to be given to you. So you have to work towards the supply, if you can. If you have to work towards the demand and thinking about the consumer. because he's the one who is going to give you the price. These are my thoughts, and I thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for giving me this opportunity to mention some of my thoughts. And I thank you also for coming on board to this webinar and endure with us on this two hours plus sessions. I give thanks to Dr. Razli for your commitment and for your sincerity in your comments on the questions and the issues that have been posed to you. Thank you very much. Thank you, David. Thank you, Nafisah. Thank you, Dr. Lee, for your work that you've done on your own basis and sharing it with us and allowing us to understand what you have worked with. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us. I'd like to pass back now the microphone to the MC, Nadia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kit and all panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our session today. We, Agro-Food Productivity Nexus AFPN team, in collaboration with Federation of Livestock Farmers Association of Malaysia, FLFAM, hope that it has been educational to everyone and the information gained from today's session would benefit you all.